My next guest is a New York Times food columnist. You can also check out many of his cooking videos on YouTube. Eric Kim is the author of the New York Times bestseller, Korean American, and he joins me now on the couch with some food for thought this morning. I'm so thrilled to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. I've never been on a couch for an interview like
really?
this. Yeah.
It's hard because you want to be like, what do we do? Do we sit back? Do we kick our feet up? You know what? You do what you want. Let's be comfortable.
Okay, this is actually really comfortable. This is
Oh,
cool.
good. I'm
Thank
glad.
you for having me.
No, I want you to feel like family when you're here.
I do.
And speaking of family, I think one of your most important missions you're trying to push for people is to, the statement of this book actually, is to write down your family recipes before it's too late, right?
Yeah, it's something that kind of came together as I was writing the book during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I moved back home with my family and I cooked with my mother for 9 months. And, you know, it was around the time when a lot of people's parents were getting sick, and I was really feeling the weight of
fear.
The fear and the weight of mortality, not to be too grim, but you know, it was really couched in all that. And so I really kind of had the pleasure and the honor of getting to really appreciate the time I had with my family. No one gets to move back home as an adult, you know?
Right, you don't really.
I was like 27, 28, and then and I got to write down all of our recipes, and it's one of those things where there will be no regrets, you know? It's all here now.
I love that. Actually, it's funny because preparing for this interview and learning about your kind of belief in this, I actually messaged my grandma.
Oh, good.
And I said, can you please send me your cookie recipes?
Yes.
Because if you don't think about it, you don't do it.
You don't do it. And you kind of take them for granted because like when they're alive, they're the ones cooking it. But it takes holidays when they come around.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that uncle isn't around anymore and to make the thing. And so I think writing down the recipes while they're still here is important.
Yeah.
But, you know, another thing I try to say to people is, you know, when you have your taste memories, not everyone's lucky enough to still have their parents around or their grandparents. You can follow that taste memory and you can cook in the kitchen and kind of chase that memory, and that's sort of another way to honor your relatives.
Okay, I don't know why that's going to make me cry, but that's like the most beautiful statement, your taste memory. I mean, mine would be Stouffer's spinach souffle, but I
love Stouffer's spinach souffle.
I
I've been trying to recreate it. That's hilarious.
Okay,
anyway,
we need to talk about that.
That's so good.
But also, like in this book that I love, there's things like Korean mom tip. And I love that. You share the personality of your family, too. What was it like developing this cookbook?
You know, I wrote about it for the New York Times, actually. It was an essay called A Year of Cooking with My Mother, and there were some difficult moments where it was my mother and I going to the kitchen with a new relationship. You know, I was an adult, but also kind of her boss. Like I'm the one writing the book, but trying to get out her secrets.
Wait, you were her boss or she's your boss?
Well, I was the one who was writing the book, you know, and it was sort of. But then so in the kitchen, I'm sort of taking lead. But it's weird because I'm her son and she's the one she's the mom who cooks. Like she's really known for her cooking in her community. So, you know, it was a lot of back and forth though, and I think the collaborative aspect is what made the book what it is. It was a lot of, it felt so good to have a partner in this. And, you know, actually half of the recipes, she took lead because they're her recipes. And I'm the translator helping her to write them down because that's my job, you know.
She's like, sit down, son.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. But we taught each other things. I think that was important.
I love that. You also teach people things in here. I mean, you kind of, like in one section, you talk all about kimchi, what it is, what it means.
Yeah.
Did you do a lot of research for the book? And in that research, did you learn more about your Korean heritage?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, the one beautiful thing about this cookbook, and I'd been touring it for, you know, a year or two, and when people come up to me, it's a lot of Korean people who were adopted. They come to me and talk to me about how cooking recipes through this book has helped them find their identity, and it sounds almost like it almost seems too easy, but there's something about getting into the cuisine of your past and your culture, even if you don't have a present connection to it, it really feels like tying back to the past. And I think there's something really special there. And I certainly felt that way because I actually didn't really know how to cook any of these dishes. I mean, to my point before, my mom was supposed to, you know, I was like, my mom's got to live forever.
Yeah,
like,
of course. Yeah, that's what we always think.
I don't need to learn her dishes, but now I know how to make them. She knows how to make them, my dishes. And it's sort of this mom and son kind of story. And I always tell people that the Korean part is my mother and the American part is me.
Yeah.
So it's definitely us on the page. Like, this is my Aunt Georgia's fried chicken.
Oh, it is.
On the cover, which she's so good at fried chicken. I added the radishes, which are, you know, a Korean style, but I used regular, you know, American radishes.
made it you.
Made it mine, and they're pink.
That's
'cause
what
I love
you know, and
pink.
I'm glad that you shared that because you know you see the cover, it's a beautiful cover, but now there's so much more into
There's
the cover of the
context.
story.
Yeah.
Speaking of visual things, I have to ask, what's it been like writing for the New York Times and making food videos with them?
Oh, it's incredible. Oh, cool. Yeah, you guys are showing the bibimbap right now. That was my very first video I shot when I drove up from Atlanta to New York. I literally like got out of the car and went to the studio to film this.
Oh my
And
gosh.
It was sort of my little, it was kind of my debut, that video.
I love that.
Yeah, look how young I look. Anyway, it was it's a really special moment to get to show visually how to cook
Yeah.
something, because I'm a teacher in my past life, and I think teaching people how to cook is where there's so much delight, because I love seeing people learn something new for the first time through a recipe. And when you learn something new and something turns out, like that Shipan bibimbap was a pretty big recipe for us at the New York Times Cooking, I think people really start to trust you, and then it's that relationship between student
Yeah.
and teacher, and I love that idea about cooking, which is there are so few things in life that give you that immediate gratification.
Yeah, but cooking does.
Of learning something new. Yeah.
You have been such a delight to talk to
Thank you
today.
for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much for sharing your family's heritage, your ideas, and your beliefs, because I think it has inspired so much of us. And by the way, you guys, listen, just a reminder, Erica's holding an event at Town Hall Seattle tonight, Thursday, March 14th, with Kenji G. Lopez Alt, who is a local celebrity when it comes to food. So such a cool event. Head to Town Hall's website for more ticket info.